Hello, everyone, and welcome to the GlobalLogic Cafe LinkedIn Live Conversations. Our LinkedIn Live conversations on the
Conversations
GlobalLogic
on the
Cafe
GlobalLogic
are going to be
Cafe
all
are
about
going to be all
careers,
about careers,
technology, leadership,
technology,
and
leadership,
diversity.
and
We
diversity.
welcome our speakers for today.
Our host for today's chat is Rajesh Rai, Vice President, People Development and Human Resources at GlobalLogic. Let's welcome Rajesh with a huge round of applause.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks so much. And first of all, a very, very warm welcome to you, Esther. So nice to see you. We are so honored. And I will also welcome our audience. And our audience is from everywhere. I think some of them may even be from outside India. So I'm so looking forward to our conversation, on this really superb, very relevant topic of breaking barriers for men and women alike, right? But before I start the conversation, I'm sure everybody who's joined in knows you extremely well, but I'd still like to introduce you. Uh, so, as everybody would know, Esther Martinez, she's the founder, CEO, and editor in chief for People Matters. And People Matters, as most of you would know, is the leading knowledge and media technology platform in the HR space. She actually brought this thought leadership pretty much to India many years back. And she's herself an HR professional turned entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur. And she today leads this battery of content creators and researchers and marketeers and this entire team, right, which brings in this thought leadership, the media products in the HR space that influence people matters, quote unquote, right, in the industry. And she herself has worked for many functions. When she's led many functions in HR and HP in Spain, data consultancy services in UK and in India. She's an alumnus of ISB Hyderabad. She has tons of accolades and credentials. She was a top influencer on employee engagement in the Global Employee Engagement Awards. She's featured in the 2016 and 2018 LinkedIn Top Voices list. She was also the top ranking writer for them. She was a renowned TEDx speaker. She is nominated for the Global Employee Engagement Influencers 2017, and I can go on and on and on and on. What an impressive background, Esther.
Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much,
joining
Rajesh.
in.
My pleasure, and it's a great privilege to be with you today.
Thank you. We are really honored, as I said. And when we were planning this session, right, me and the team, right, we were thinking of this one question, saying you came in from outside of India into a very different culture, and now you are this successful women leader, entrepreneur, CEO, founder. I'm sure there would have been many struggles, impediments along the way. And at that time, we had so many biases, which still exist to an extent. But many years back, it was even more. How did you navigate all of this to become so successful?
Thank you. Thanks, Rajesh. And I really want to take the caveat to say, well, I don't know what success looks like, but I would say it's still a journey. It's still a journey. It's still every day is an opportunity to learn things, to discover how we can be more impactful and how we can sometimes self-sabotage ourselves in that journey to be impactful. So I will really not accept your definition that is success, because for me success is a moving target, and it's measured with the ability to impact people around us, and I think there's still a long way to go. But going to your question about how do you navigate challenges, especially when you started something outside of your comfort zone and so on and so forth, and I think when I reflect about it, a lot of it is also about asking the question, what's the worst that can happen, right? And I think once you face your biggest fear, and then you can realize that even failure doesn't look that bad. So what
Wow.
if I were to go to India? What if I were to study in India, which I did in ISB in 2004? What if I fail? And then the question was, what will happen if I fail? What if I start a business and I fail? And the answers have always been like, well, then I'll just get another job. I will probably go back to the person I used to work with, and I think he or she will love to have me back in the team. So everything that I've ever done, thinking that there is a big threat or a big failure, asking the question, what's the worst that can happen, and really facing the worst case scenario and realize that even that can be a gift, even that is
Oh,
an opportunity to learn something. Suddenly you're not that scared, because of course you will work towards success and you'll put all your effort towards success,
yeah.
but you've
Hmm.
already thought that what if I fail, and you let
Hmm.
go of that fear and just focus on making it successful, because you've already thought that if I fail, then this is my plan B, this is my
That's
plan C.
that's that's very interesting, very inspiring. Actually, I'm taking this away as my first takeaway from today. At Global Logic, we also, and this gives me a segue to my next question, which is also, I think, fairly connected, but maybe there's something different that I can learn again from you. Is that at Global Logic we use this word called hashtag be exceptional. We're always
Yeah.
bringing in unique perspectives, different work. We never settle for the obvious at Global Logic. Culturally, we are like that. So I'm sure you have done something very differently. This was definitely one of those, thoughts that you shared just now, of saying what if failure happens. But I'm very sure you've done things that are different, right? To be so successful throughout this journey, right? Throughout whatever the journey was like. So what was that different? I mean, what did you do that was so different, and how?
So I think for me, being exceptional or be exceptional is all about the impact. So exceptional for what, or exceptional towards what end? And I
Hmm.
think that's what drives my and our. I think it's also a value from a team perspective. It drives our innovation, because it's not innovation for innovation's sake, is not bringing products for product's sake, but it's really about why do you aspire. We call it impact, because for us it's all about the impact we create in our community. But even in
Okay.
the Global Logic context, when you're talking about being exceptional, for me being exceptional is about pushing your own imagination on how may we impact. And I think when you have the ability to dream big, and that's, for me it's been a journey, because as a leader or as a person, I've always been somebody who's very practical, and sometimes being very practical can limit your ability to be exceptional, right? So it's great to be
Oh, okay.
practical. It's good to be practical, because all these ideas and all these great thoughts have to be executed, but you shouldn't limit your
Imagination.
imagination by your practicality. So for me, it's been a journey. And I think the first phase of our success was because of our ability to execute. But as you scale, you need to be courageous enough to dream big. If you really, really want to be exceptional at a bigger scale. So it's been a journey from shifting to be practical, which was good for a initial phase of the business, but also realizing that you have to dream big and you have to break those barriers of, would this really be possible? Because if you at the conceptualization stage you ask too many questions about, is it really going to be possible,
Mm.
then
Mm.
you're narrowing your ability to impact.
Oh,
So there are
that
different
is
stages. So
wow.
we need to first dream big and then look at the practicalities of it in the second stage.
Oh, excellent. No, I can actually relate to it because I remember, many years back when People Matters got established, right from the look and feel to it, to the content, to the topics, to the trends, to the thought leadership it brought to the table was one of its kind. It was never. I don't think anybody ever even attempted something like that. And then I remember under 40 initiative for
Yeah,
HR professionals. You were
yeah,
possibly the first one who
yeah.
did that at an industry-wide level,
We
and
were.
the list can go on and on and on. So I can relate
Yeah.
to the impact part of it and the practicality part of it very well. This
Thank
is
you,
truly
Rajesh.
Esther, quote unquote.
Thank you, Rajesh. And I think as you grow in your career, I think at the junior or maybe at the beginning, being exceptional really means delivering the highest quality outcome that you possibly can, and really ship your work only when you think like, is this the best I can do? And I think that's really, really important to create a very strong foundation and credibility in your career. So is this the best I can give? Right? And many times
Ah,
we ship our work and say, okay, I'm done. That's not being exceptional, right? Being exceptional is being
is
true to yourself.
continuously
Correct.
upping
Correct.
the threshold. You, in
Correct.
any case, had like your benchmarks and threshold were always very high. So I don't know what going beyond that meant, but you were always up there, right?
Well, you aspire for the, as they say, no, you aspire for the stars, and you'll reach the moon. So you have to have
Oh,
that
brilliant.
big standard of what you want to achieve.
Excellent, excellent. No, I think as you were speaking, I was relating to, our culture as well. I think we're very alike and very similar in all that you mentioned here at Global Logic. Now, just from a gender perspective, we are above about 35% diversity. We want to reach to 40 and then eventually become, one day gender neutral as a workforce. We defined inclusivity, many years back, where our employees were always flexible, right? There was always flexibility given to employees for years together, saying you manage your work schedules, you have the flexibility, the transparency to do what you like and make an impact in the company. And these days, I see that many more companies are in the industry doing this. Open, conducive environment. In fact, our employee engagement keeps rising. In our recent results, we had our employee engagement score was almost +6 on the benchmark. Right, the benchmark is 73. We are at 79. Um, I think one of the reasons of that is possibly because we provided the space to our people to what we are talking about today, which is break the barriers or break the bias, right? So, and you had an excellent journey. What is like, if you were to give advice to the audience and to, of course, many of our employees who may be watching, what would be that advice that you would give to them on this theme of break the bias, especially basis your own experience?
So I think first it starts with again the vision or the purpose of what you want to do with your career. In my case, it was, as I said before, about impacting the community. I think when your focus or your purpose is sharp, you're kind of like a unstoppable force. So I think some of those biases or those obstacles or barriers are just learning opportunities, or so I see them. So if
Right.
and I think I always look at things, either some things are out of your control, but many things are actually, you think they're out of your control, but they're actually just they're not defined enough. So you think they're out of your control, but they're not. You just need to walk a little farther in the path, and you discover ways around those problems. So just take the metaphor of, imagine that you're in a forest, and it's very gloomy, it's dark, and you can't see anything, and you want to cross the forest and end up on the, let's say for example, on the north east side of the forest, right? Imagine that that's your goal. Now, if you're clear with the goal, then you will start walking towards that direction, and you'll find a river, and then you'll have to kind of find a place where it's safe to cross. Then you'll find a mountain, and you'll have to go around the mountain. And then, so it's not going to be a straight line. So I think first is the realization that life will give you all those challenges, and they're, in my opinion, they're actually gifts, because it helps you grow as a person. It helps you discover a lot of beauty. If it's a straight line, then what's the point? So I look at all of those barriers, all those biases as an opportunity to develop myself. Makes life a little more fun and more entertaining. But you need to have that North Star. If you're in that forest and it's all dark and it's misty, you can't see anything, and you don't know where you're going, then everything is going to be a challenge, right? There is a river now. Oh God, now there is a river. What do I do with it? So I think it really starts about having a little bit of clarity. And I think many of us never, at least it didn't happen to me, that you wake up one morning and you have this aha moment that this is my North Star. You need to kind of start walking towards a direction and realize that this is feeling like this is something that gives me satisfaction. It's something that I feel that I'm impacting, and it's something that gives me energy. Then you keep going towards that direction and try to find that North Star. And then all those barriers just become learning opportunities. They're not barriers anymore. They're gifts in your journey.
Wow. Wow. No, thank you very much. I think this is, and I was hearing you, one of the, again, one of my, another key takeaway is that you need to have that North Star in your head, and then you slowly, every single day, every week, every month, on a continuous basis, you're treading towards that North Star, and that is your guiding force, really. And that is very, very important for everybody to be really successful.
I think
But are that,
the
yeah.
challenge, Rajesh, a lot of times is that we think that these North Star have to be really fully defined, and we get into this romantic vision. I think it happens to some people, and I think they're really, really fortunate that they really know what they want to do in their life. I think as a mortal myself, I had to discover that as I walked along. But it's really about listening to yourself. And to me, it is just about looking at what's impacting and what is giving you energy. So the more time you spend on things that give you energy, that just kind of makes
Wow.
your quality of life much better. And the more things that I do that creates impact, so the more time I spend into things that I feel it impacts people in the community and society at large, and it gives me energy personally. That's the North Star, right? So I think more
Wow.
than that aha moment realization,
Wow.
meditating one day and say, oh, I know exactly what I want to do. It has never happened to me. Even today, it hasn't happened. So it's just about sensing where you're able to impact and where are you drawing energy from. Go towards that
That's
direction.
amazing. That's amazing. No, thank you for that. I think personally, it's a beautiful what do I say, learning that I'm getting from you, because yes, you're right. The North Star is never well defined for most of us. It's a hazy thing somewhere, and we're all trying to figure it all out. And I think the key is listening to yourself and then saying, are you enjoying it? Are you making the impact? Are you truly making it, are you making progress towards that North Star? Cool. But one question that comes to my mind is that is are the barriers for men and women different? And I know this question came to me because I remember when we were planning the session, you said, well, why only women? Men and women both, right? Because
Yeah,
barriers are there for both. So let's talk about breaking the barriers for both.
yeah.
So do you think they're different for both, and they overcome it in a different way, or how is it like? What's your opinion?
Yeah, I think, thank you, Rajesh, for that, because I think it's a very important point, and we have many male colleagues as well joining us for this conversation. And I mentioned that, Rajesh, because I think the journey of removing barriers is common for all of us.
Yeah.
It is true, fortunately or unfortunately, that women carry a lot of those barriers because of society, because of the industry we work, because of sometimes even within the geography where you live exactly carries a different level of barriers, right?
Right.
It's not that that you live in India, where in India, and even it's not that you live in Mumbai, where in Mumbai, right? So it's just there is a layer of barriers that society brings, geographical location brings, industry brings, even company culture brings. There are barriers in the company culture as well, right? So those we can't control. I think what I'm inviting everyone to think about is the barriers that we self-impose, and we do a really, really good job on
Good
self-imposing
job of
barriers
self-imposing.
at the woman level, right? And I think it's just a matter of survival. It's easier to impose some of those barriers, so we disappoint ourselves a bit less, so we expect less, we fight less, and that's a barrier. Nothing is
Wow.
stopping us to really breaking that barriers, but in a way we have to break them in our own heads first. And I think that's a journey of discovery that I invite all our woman colleagues to really think about what are some of those barriers that actually I'm self-imposing myself. For
Did you
example,
have did you have yourself like
well, I have
seriously?
I have still lots of barriers, but I think the biggest one for me was what's so called the imposter syndrome, which is something that happens both to men and women. But the
Yeah.
imposter syndrome is a bias towards yourself when you are achieving something, or as Rajesh was saying, no, when people are saying, well, you're successful, or you're a very successful entrepreneur, you have that feeling that, is this true? Am I really that person that Rajesh is introducing me? And you have this self-doubt, which is called the imposter syndrome, which is the feeling where you have when you're in a big meeting. Maybe somebody has invited you for some big CEO meeting, and you're sitting in that room saying, do I really deserve being here? Do I really fit in here?
Oh
And
my
that's
God,
that's a
really?
big challenge for a woman. That do
Hmm.
I belong here? And that's self-imposed. Somebody has invited me, somebody has welcomed me. That means they believe that I have something to add. But why am I self-imposing this doubt of imposter syndrome? So the first
Wow,
thing is to realize about it, and that in itself takes a long time, to realize that I am self
really?
sabotaging myself. Like if Rajesh is saying that People Matters is impacting the community, embrace that and say thank you very much. And that took me a long time to work on. So for me,
Really?
that was a big barrier. That in fighting the imposter syndrome and believing that I am here because I deserve to be here and I have a voice and I have something to say, and I will not get intimidated because I'm the only woman in the room, or I'm the only, European in the room, or I'm the only younger person in the room, or whatever is the minority that you
Yeah.
represent. So you're not there because of tokenism. You're not there because somebody liked you. You're there because you deserve to be there. So you need to start believing that, and then
Wow.
taking charge of it.
That's a really powerful one, and I'm sure it must have been a journey because, these are things which are very, I would say, hidden deep inside
Correct.
us, very
Correct.
personal, and
Correct.
you have to slowly,
Correct.
slowly, slowly, slowly work on them. And wow, that is quite a eye opener, actually. I'm so tempted to ask you that if you were to go back in time, if I was to reverse the time machine, what would be that one short sentence you'll tell yourself? What would it be? I mean, to your younger self.
Oh gosh, I'll just say, just enjoy the moment. I'll really not tell anything to myself, because I think it's, it's, as I said, every problem that life will bring you, whether it's personal, professional, it's an opportunity to see some part of yourself that you haven't seen. So I really would not tell much to my younger self more than enjoy the journey. Enjoy every moment, even the difficult moments are moments to reflect, to be paused, to be more detached. Because I used to tend to get very anxious about things and wanting to control more things. Now today I'm a bit more, many things get sorted on their own, Rajesh, and you have experienced that. So
Yes, no,
you
no.
you need to let things happen, and you need to enjoy the journey. What's the point otherwise? For some of us,
How
for a
sweet is
little,
that? How
when some of us who are closer to the 50s, you'll understand what I mean. But for many of you who are on the younger lot, you'll be like, yeah, okay, whatever. But it is really about enjoying the journey. So, and that takes, I think we're not educated to do that. We are educated to say, well, every minute counts. And, if you're not doing something, then you're wasting time. And I think that is so difficult to let go, because it's ingrained in our upbringing, it's ingrained in our education system. And we're not taught to enjoy the journey. We feel guilty if we enjoy the journey, which is
Oh
such a
my
lie.
goodness, these are things that I know, what you're speaking today is coming straight from the heart. It's something that most of us, gender aside, right, really have it inside us. These are things we deal with, along the journey, and still continue to deal with, many of us, irrespective of our seniority, age, or whatever else, right? In fact, there's a very interesting question from the audience which says that, have you Have you seen, in your experience, a bias up and close, and how did you deal with that? That's a very interesting one.
Oh God. Oh God. Will be difficult. So something that has happened to me personally, that somebody has
Or maybe
discriminated
up
me,
and close.
or
Maybe you
maybe
would have
someone
observed.
else, or someone
Maybe
else.
you would have observed. Yeah.
God, that's a great question, and I can't think of an example in particular. I think there is a lot of, so there are a lot of microaggressions. I think I want to differentiate
Okay.
the difference between, when we talk about bias, many of us are thinking of this, big injustice, and that's what I can't think about an example, because
Hmm. Hmm.
I
Hmm.
have been very fortunate to work with companies that have been really inclusive, to be surrounded with, an environment of friends and family which is very, very inclusive. But and you don't experience biases in capitals, but you do experience microaggressions. And for me, microaggression is anything which is a small behavior that will just not give that equal stand to somebody. And I'll give you an
Got it.
example,
Got it.
and that has happened many times. So
Okay.
I can't identify a single example, but it happens many times. Maybe
Okay.
you're in a meeting and we're discussing something, and there is a time for solutioning, and maybe I may mention something, and
Hmm.
later on someone else mentions the same point, and everyone agrees to that point, and everyone forgets that maybe that was mentioned by me or was mentioned by
Um,
someone else. Maybe
my
and,
goodness.
and
Okay.
that's something I have seen more,
Hmm.
a woman men kind of behavior
Hmm.
coming in meetings. So that's for us to be aware.
Hmm.
Most of people who do microaggressions, including me, I probably do microaggressions without knowing. We don't know, we don't realize. And I think it's the opportunity for you identify that microaggression. How do you find an opportunity to say, well, that's a great point, Rajesh, but that's exactly what Esther said. So Esther, can you elaborate on your point, because you mentioned that three points
Yeah.
before. So how do
Yeah.
we use these opportunities to identify
Right.
microaggressions? And
Hmm.
because that's the real change. I think the big
Right.
biases like discrimination, that those are so big that we have processes for it. We have
Right.
legislation around it, but the
Yeah.
microaggressions one is the
We
one
have
that
and then they're difficult to deal with as well on a
very
daily basis, right? It's
very
so
difficult
tough.
to identify,
And they're
very
hidden. They're not
difficult to
out in
they
the open. So it
absolutely
even makes them worse, right? So wow.
absolutely. So I hope that has answered a little bit of the question.
I'm sure it has. And there's one other question which is around, um, how I'm sure you can because you are so well connected to the industry. You've seen this industry, especially in the people space, evolve over so many years. Actually, it's almost now 2 decades in India. Uh, do you you've also seen that companies are now getting to breaking these barriers and doing other companies that are really doing great in this area, or we still have distance to cover?
I think we have lots of distance to cover,
Mhm.
and I feel the responsibility, a lot of it is about women and men working together. We need more men that are activists towards
Yeah.
bringing inclusion. And the challenge
Right.
with men is that many men support this movement, but when they vocalize that, they actually tagged as, you know, chill, no? Why are you so vocal about it? And there is a peer group that is suppressing that
Mhm. Mhm.
behavior. That's why I
Right.
call it, but that's why I'm inviting men that are actually believing that this is good for their teams, for their business, for society at large. You will have to level up. You actually need to become more of an activist.
Got it.
So it's not a supporter, because supporter will not make it. Supporter will mean the peer group will bring that support down, and you will just want to fit in. And I think it's
Right.
time for more and more men to become activists. And when someone is making fun of you and saying that, why are you such a feminist, and what's wrong with you, they will do it jokingly, but that's also a microaggression, right? They'll
Hmm.
make fun
No,
of
no,
it and say,
absolutely.
but that's
Absolutely.
also
It's
that's also
everywhere. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
also limiting you. So I
You're
think
right.
we need more activists that say, well, this is
Hmm.
important. we have to do
Mhm.
it. The rest of the men will not like it, because there's still in our mind, no, in the survival brain, there is this zero sum game. No, there are more women,
Right,
then that means there is less for men or something.
right,
There
right.
is somewhere there in the survival brain, and we have to just realize that we live in an abundant society. So the more we include, the bigger the pie is for everyone.
And that's great because, and then somebody asked us on the chat window as well, saying, does Global Logic have any special policies? And, my response to that is that culturally and across our policies, this is a movement that we are trying to, what you just shared, we're trying to further, right? Where you want more and more people to talk about these things and get to create it's all about inclusion at the end of the day. So you get to break these biases, create, and a classic example is to have gender neutral policies, or
Yeah,
policies that are
correct.
uniformly applicable to everybody, have a voice, right, irrespective of where you come from. Fairness and equity as words are really, embedded in the culture. Uh, and so I mean, I can just relate to the
Yeah.
GL way,
And
so to
just to
say. And
add,
not just
Rajesh,
one policy defines it really.
just to add to what you're mentioning, and I think congratulations on thinking so progressively, because men also want to be liberated. Men also want to really, let go of that burden of, the tags that we've put in them, right?
Yeah.
They also want to be a full human being, which we sometimes with these policies don't allow. So really,
And
congratulations for that progressive
I'm
approach.
so glad we're on this journey, and I just hope we, are ultra successful there, right? So just keeping my fingers crossed that yes, we'll be successful, on this journey. In the interest of time, one question, possibly one last question. Okay, to answer just one question there, are
Sure.
we allowing transgenders at work? The answer is yes, definitely. Global Logic definitely does that, and provides them with absolutely equal opportunities like anybody else. So whoever asked in the audience, please do note the same. Esther, for you, there's this question saying, do you have a role model? And possibly I can just take this last question. That who is that one person in your life that you look up to every day and get inspired? And in the interest of time, this is the only last
Yeah.
question I could take. But
Yeah. So
anybody who you, yeah,
I think it's difficult, and for many of us, maybe difficult to just mention one person. I think for me is really about what is this, what can I learn from different people around me. So, for example,
wow,
if I think there's no such a thing. We're all imperfect anyway, right? So just having a role model and say, well, I look up to this person, I think is way too much responsibility on that person, and it can be a little blinding, because all of us are imperfect, and we completely, there's no human being who is not imperfect. So I think for me, it's just about identifying what are the things that I look up to in different people, and learn from them. It could be, you know, uh, my daughter, because she gets excited about things so naturally, and she has that opportunity to, or that beauty of getting excited about things. Or, my uncle who recently passed away 6 months ago, his ability to just be very resilient. Whatever happens in life, he will just be positive. And he passed away when he was 92, and he had a beautiful life. And I look at that and say, well, that's the way to live. That's the way to enjoy life, right? And there are people who I don't have the opportunity to meet, but I look up to. So it's really about creating that quilt of things that you love about others, and just kind of drive inspiration. For me, role
got
models are for inspiration.
got it. No,
And it
thank
can
you
come
very
from
much,
anyone. It
Esther.
can come from a colleague. It can come from somebody you work with. It of course comes from my spouse, who is like absolutely focused, and I love that
Very
about
focused.
him. And it comes from people, from your personal life, from your professional life, and of course from larger community as well.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, Esther. And, again, I would reiterate, deeply honored to have you here with us today. And I know, we'll be ending this session just in a few seconds. I'm taking away a lot from this conversation. Thank you for, speaking on these heavy duty
Thank you.
subjects in a manner which you stand for, right? Humility combined with influence, leadership, impact, creativity, everything put in one. Thank you for being the role model that you are for,
Thank you,
many
Rajesh.
HR professionals, business professionals in the industry. And of course, honored to have you with us for this conversation. Thank you so very much.
You're most welcome, Rajesh, and it's a pleasure to be with the Global Logic team, and it's a triple pleasure to be with you. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Thanks again.